Hello and welcome to Talking Law. I am Dr. Sally Penni MBE. I'm a barrister at Kenworthy's Chambers in Manchester, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Association of Women Barristers and founder of Women in the Law UK. On this podcast, you'll hear leading barristers, judges, solicitors, managing partners and more talk about their lives and career journeys within the legal sector. This episode is supported by Addleshaw Goddard, a multi-award-winning international law firm which has helped clients in over 105 countries across the world. Find out more at addleshawgoddard.com. Before you meet today's guest, a reminder that tickets for the Women in the Law UK annual conference in Manchester in November are now available. Please visit womeninthelaw.uk.com. I'd also love you to watch my recent TED Talk, where I discuss whether love can conquer hate. Please head to TED.com and search for Sally Penni. Today, I'm talking law with Shelley McGivern, a partner in Addleshaw Goddard's corporate team, with a particular focus on acquisitions and disposals and joint ventures in the real estate sector. She was also appointed a Deputy District Judge in 2013. I began by asking Shelley what attracted her to a career in law, and more specifically, corporate law.
I always either wanted to be a lawyer or a vet, bizarrely, and then decided that there were quite a few animals that I wasn't actually that keen on. So went down the law route. And then why corporate? I like doing the deals. So, bizarrely, my favourite part of the job is actually right at the end of the transaction when, it's pressured, the hours are long, but we're all there as part of a team, working with the client, trying to push the transaction over the line. I like that sort of business and commercial element to that. And probably I also like the fact that, it begins and ends to some degree in a reasonably short period of time. So I think suits my personality probably as well. I work much better under pressure.
Yes,
I'm not very good if I haven't got people chasing me for
things.
Oh
yes, that's like me. It's the adrenaline, isn't it? I know I talk a lot about well-being, and I will come back to that, but I totally get that because I'm also the same. Shirley, that's brilliant actually just to know that. And I mean, we're recording this in Manchester, and I want to ask you, are you from Manchester?
I am, yes. Yeah.
And have you stayed here? Did you go to London for a bit? I'm keen for people to be less London-centric. Obviously, AG is a global law firm.
Yeah. No, so I've never travelled to London probably sort of pre-COVID, once a month or so. So I love London, but I wouldn't want to live there.
Yeah.
When I first qualified, I did do 6 months in New York.
Wow.
Which was very exciting and enjoyed that.
Yes.
But no, I absolutely love Manchester, and I've never felt a huge desire to go and join the hordes in London. I think we're really lucky up here actually in that, we kind of have everything, particularly in law, that I don't think, the quality of the work that we're able to do up here in Manchester completely rivals that in London, and therefore never felt like we're missing out or any desire or pull to go down there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Shelley, what are the interesting things about you as a solicitor partner in a law firm? You do sit as a deputy district judge. Tell me, one, how long have you been sitting? And two, how did that come about? Because you are the example I've been looking for all the women in the law solicitors.
Yeah, so how it came about, I think it was a Law Society event, and I can't remember where somebody was it was one of the speakers who was talking about sort of diversity in the judiciary and saying that they wanted to sort of widen the pool. And I thought, that's quite interesting. And they were talking about you could go for a day judicial shadowing.
Yes. Which is observing.
And I just thought, why not? So I went on that, really enjoyed it, completely and utterly different to my day job. I mean, I've never ever done litigation. So as a qualified solicitor, I'd never been in court.
Yes.
But that didn't seem to be any sort of barrier. I think one of the good things then, which they've actually changed, which I don't think is a good thing, is so I have to sit a minimum of 15 days a year, which actually is a real struggle to try and juggle that and fit it in. It doesn't sound like a lot, but actually it can be difficult to fit that in. I know they've recently increased that to a minimum of 30 days, which I don't think is a good thing at all. Because, well, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So there's no way on earth I would be able to fit in 30 days a year sitting. So I actually think that will discourage people.
Yes, because that's sometimes an annual holiday.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard to fit in. So that's an interesting point, I think. I don't know. I can see why they did that, because they obviously desperately want people to sit and there's a shortage.
Yes, and gain the experience.
Yeah. But actually, I think if you want more diversity from a wider range of people who are doing different things, I think increasing that will have actually a negative impact.
Interesting.
But I do really enjoy it. I think by the time I get to the end of the day and have survived and not been appealed, and it's just so different. And I think you learn so many skills from doing that. Skills for yourself, but also skills in watching the advocates and
going, I'm not going to do that.
Exactly. And and I think another, which you will know anyway from having not done litigation, I think you can often sort of read the papers before the parties come in, have a sort of an idea about where you think your judgment will go, and then actually until you see the people and hear the evidence, you can have a completely 360 degree turn on what. So that, I think that's quite fascinating. It means, I think even in my day job, it's made me step back and don't sort of jump in and make assumptions, just kind of wait. And so that's really useful.
Really interesting. And how did you manage, you use the term flexing, which I love, flex your career. So for example, when your children were younger, did you used to take, this is my research, I want to make sure I got it right, you used to take sort of the summer off with them or sitting? How did you juggle that? Or I just love the word flex. How did you flex it?
So I think that's the great thing about Addleshaws, is that they've always supported that flex. So some people see it as a sort of one career path, whereas actually we don't see that here at all. So I think the point in time when I came back after having my first child was probably the point in time that you start to think about, actually, where am I going with my career? Do I want to go for partnership? Those kinds of things. And actually, I mean, there's only 20 months between my two children. So at that point in time, sort of pushing for partnership was kind of the last thing that I felt like throwing into the mix.
Absolutely.
So I decided that I wouldn't do that then, but I took the role of legal director. And what that enabled me to do was say, I still want to do the same level of work, but actually I don't want to do any business development activities. I just want to come in, I want to do a good job, and I don't want all the things around it. And at the same time, as the children got a bit older, I really wanted to spend more time with them. So it wasn't just the summer I had off, I had all the school holidays.
Oh, right.
So I worked term time.
Yes, that is good.
Really good. And actually worked well with corporate law, I think, because we work on less matters, but they're very intense.
Yes.
So if you're going to be off for 2 weeks, for instance, you need to hand over all your matters, because they will definitely need work doing on them. And therefore, in some ways, it doesn't really matter whether you're off for 2 weeks or 6 weeks, because you've already handed it all over.
Yes.
So it worked perfectly. I don't do that anymore. No. My children are that bit older, and actually I think these days they see me more as a taxi service and an ATM machine. They're my key contributions to them.
The Shelley Uber.
Exactly. So then as the children got a little bit older, and you get your life back a little bit more, don't you? You start to think about yourself. And actually, I'd felt like I'd kind of outgrown the LD role for me personally, but it worked perfectly for that period of time. And then I thought, I'll go now and take the step up to partnership, which the firm were really supportive about. And so, my career, I haven't taken the sort of normal, traditional straight up route. I've taken it in different directions, which has suited my life at that point in time.
Yeah, which is fantastic. I don't want to be biased, therefore, and advertise Addleshaw, because I'm sure there will be bad things here. I'm sure.
Everywhere.
Yes, I couldn't. It just sounds great to be able to do that. Shelley, we're sitting, I'm in black. I think I'm being adventurous today because I'm wearing a dress with a jacket, suit, dress, jacket. It's still black because, I'm at the bar. And you're wearing what I would wear out of work, a nice Bowden dress. I think it's Bowden because I know the catalogue well. And I did some fundraising. And, and you look very fit and healthy. And I want to ask you about well-being. What do you do then, and have you embrace this kind of, I wouldn't say it's informal because you're very professionally dressed, but I was expecting a suit, but we at the bar are a bit behind with the day job if we're in court. Can you share with me, what do you do for your well-being? Because let's face it, particularly in the corporate department, it's long hours, complicated deals, and it can result in burnout and staying up late. So how do you look after yourself?
Yeah, and I think that is a really, really good point. And I think key for me has always been setting very sort of clear parameters about the certain things that you are just going to prioritise. So, for instance, I have genuinely never missed one of my children's sports days.
Wow.
I know. Concert, because you generally know when they are going to be far in advance.
Yes.
And even if you run there and then, run out and run back to the office, they're really important to me. So I just will not miss those.
Yes.
I think you also have to accept that, there are times when it is just going to be really, really intense and long hours. But I think what you need to do is make sure then that when you do get the opportunity to take some downtime, which sometimes can't come as often as you'd like it to, that you do take that time, and also sometimes, it's not a sacrifice to yourself, but for instance, if I think, oh gosh, I'm going to have to do some work this weekend, then, now my children are teenagers and will sleep half the day. Well, yes, I will just get up really early and do that because you have to find a way to make it work. It's, I didn't sign up for a 9-to-5 job. I knew that it's never going to be that.
Yes.
So I think you just have to work your way through it at different points in your life as to, what works for you.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you then, we've been in COVID, a global pandemic. I don't know half the people dress anymore. My husband's constantly in shorts, even when he goes in. Do you think that will have an effect or a longer term effect on well-being, attendance in the office and how we work and how we approach work in the long term?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, there were massive advantages and disadvantages of, for me personally.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed that period, if I'm being perfectly honest. But that's from a really privileged position, isn't it? That, we had a house big enough for, the kids to have their own bedrooms. The weather was amazing. We had a nice garden. I could afford to buy them things.
Yeah.
So, I look at that from how lucky we were. But it was really nice to be around and spend time with them much more, just eat dinner with them every night and those kinds of things. Yeah. But equally, I did find myself where there was no sort of, so you could interact with those kind of things, but equally you were basically working, not 24 hours a day, but 7 days a week, because there was no delineation between a weekday or a weekend.
Exactly.
So it's just like, oh, I'll finish that on Sunday, or I'll do that on Saturday afternoon, because there was nothing. So I don't think that wasn't good.
Yeah.
And I think people got into bad habits around that.
Yes.
I think for some people it was really isolating.
Absolutely.
I think if you're a single person, living on your own in an apartment somewhere, then again, there was no delineation of the day. They just sat there all day and there was nothing else to do than work. So I think people's experiences of COVID were so different depending on your own personal circumstances. And I think that's the same now coming back. So we've got people who are in, and it would like everybody else to be in 5 days a week.
Yes.
And we've got some people who would probably happily never set foot in the building again. so that I don't think it's over, because I think we're now just in that sort of transition phase where and what you have to do then, we have to find, and it comes back to what we said before, flex, doesn't it?
Everybody has
everybody has their own views of what works, but we have really extreme views, and again, so it's finding that balance in the middle, isn't it? Something that works for everyone. So what we're currently saying is a minimum of 2 days in the office for associates. We're having an anchor day for our team where, unless there's a reason why you can't, be all good to come in on a Thursday, at least we all see each other then.
Great.
So yeah, I think there's a lot to still work out, but I personally think if you don't, it's very easy to lose your culture, because if everybody's just sat at home all day, well then what is the reason why you're at that firm or place of work? Because you can sit at home on your computer and work for anyone, and then what does it become about? Just who's going to pay the most money?
Do you know, you're spot on there, Shelley, because in lockdown, running all these webinars daily, 1 to 2, so people had somewhere to go, and one of the consultants we worked with was on culture and leadership, and it's really interesting because they were saying this right at the beginning of the pandemic, that culture will become even more important, and during, because I was talking about cheese boxes being sent and wine box hampers, mainly to my husband. That was their team building, and I was just snooping around it,
eating it,
then having to do insanity to keep my well-being with homeschooling. But you hit the nail on the head there. The culture is so important, and we have to revisit it. Can I ask you really 2 questions, really? And one in turn. Firstly, you mentioned associates before, and I've been concerned about people entering the law now. And I wonder if you had any advice for them, just some quick tips or a quick tip about what to look for or how to choose where to go. And secondly, for women who sometimes are like, the attrition rates, certainly at the bar, have improved, but we know in the profession are not brilliant. There are a few female partners. It's much better now, certainly not fewer equity and certainly managing partners. But I just wonder if you had anything to say about, one, any tips for anyone wanting to enter the law, and secondly, for people, women as well, especially because we're both women, about progressing in the law. Have you got anything to share with me, maybe?
I think probably just for anybody entering the law, I think I would say, find an aspect of the law that you love. I think that's the most important thing is, we're a long time working and it's a hard job in whatever you choose to do. So you have to really, really enjoy what you do.
Yes.
Would be what I would say. So don't go because that's the most fashionable thing or it's paying the most, or because actually, fundamentally, if you don't enjoy what you do, it's going to be hard to motivate yourself to get up every day and go in. So I think look wider than the initial things that you might target.
Yes.
And I think for women, I think I would just say be brave, actually, and sort of set out what you want from your career and how you want it. And I think I'd also say be patient and be realistic.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I should say this or not, but fundamentally it's a job.
Yeah.
So it's not your entire life.
Yes.
So, does it really matter if you're, 3 or 4 years later than some of your peers and getting to where you want? If it means the balance of your life
is better,
during that progression is much better, then fantastic, because I think you're always balancing everything around.
Yes.
So I would never see that, do I say, oh, well, maybe I got partnership 5-6 years later than I could have done if I'd have really pushed. I look back and think, oh, how lucky was I that I was able to have all that time off with my children when they were young.
Absolutely.
So I think that would be the key thing that I'd say. And I think I'd be really sort of brave in saying what you're prepared to do and how you're prepared to do it.
Yes.
During that period of time, because I don't know what you think. I'd be interested in what you think. I think often women put their own limitations on. So actually I would find, when I was younger and, somebody just puts a diary appointment in your diary for 5:00, just at the point you would be leaving to have to go and pick up, and you think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then actually if you just email the person and say, sorry, 5 doesn't work for me, they just go, oh, okay.
Yes.
It's not because but you've put your own pressure on you.
Yeah.
Whereas actually they're not thinking anything because they're not going to pick up their children. They've just seen 5 and they've put it in.
Yeah.
The second you push back and say, actually, that doesn't work, they don't hesitate.
Do you know, it's a good point you make. And I do think it's a good point. And it's confidence as well to be brave. Because I remember listening an employment case, complicated. It required me, but actually it could have been returned. And I said to the judge, who was a male judge, lovely man, when he was listing it, and it was a preliminary point, which if we'd won it, that actually that would have been the end of the case. I was acting for the respondent. And so he was listing it, and it was an October half term. It wasn't that long ago, but I was at least 20 years old, I think, then. And I said, I thought, shall I just say it? Or just leave it in, ruin another half term by going in? I don't know if we were away. And I just said, I'm sorry, I think that's half term. And so I won't be available. And he said, yes, of course, I think I'll be skiing. Just relisted it.
Exactly.
Yes.
But you were like, shall I say it?
Yes, shall I say it?
Yeah.
Shall I say
Yeah.
it? And I was really kind of thinking, all these years. And so you're right. And I think sometimes the sort of culture or the expectations, whatever the norms we think are, we don't push back. And perhaps we can be better at it. And when you were saying that, you know, setting out what you want precisely. I remember when I was interviewing Lady Hale and she said, be strategic. And I think it's the same word. That, whether that's strategically in this line of success, as you were talking about, whether it's 5 years that you get partnership or whatever, or more or less, it doesn't matter, but set out where you want to be. And sometimes success doesn't mean you're always going up. I think sometimes success means you're just kind of balanced for now.
But it's success, that's what I mean. Success is your whole life.
Yes.
Don't judge, you know, your only success by your position in your job.
Yeah.
To my mind, if success is if you find that position and it works for your whole life, then that's massively more successful in my eyes than somebody who's, you know, got to be partner after 6-7 years, but, you know, it's having a breakdown and never sees their children. Doesn't go home, and that's not success.
No. And I do know somebody who that happened to, you know, one of the youngest, brightest partners ever, but actually hasn't been sustainable.
So don't be drawn in, I think. Have your own sort of idea of what success is for you.
Yes.
And don't let sort of outside influences. And I do also think you have to be realistic. There are some days where you just think, oh my God, you know, what am I doing with my life? Like, you know, I really don't know which thing to turn to next.
Yes.
And that, you know, it's a demanding job, isn't it? It's never going to be a simple, easy job. So I think there are periods where it's just really actually quite hard, but I think they are periods. And as long as they're sort of periods and you're like, well, that was horrendous 2 weeks, but actually, you know, over the whole last 6 months, on average, it's been fine, then that's okay, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. Shelley, you and I met a Women in Law annual dinner, which I organised, and it was here in Manchester, and Lady Hale was guest speaker. And so I just wanted to ask you if you think we still need women's spaces or dinners or organisations, because, you know, Addleshaw here, you've really increased your appreciation of diversity, not just by having Harold Braco here, but in other ways, you've really embraced, you know, LGBTQ plus month, Pride, all of it. But I wonder on gender, whether, you know, you think we still do need to have a women's forum.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably slightly on the fence about this. I think my view is that you do need things that sort of highlight the issues for women, because I think they're still there.
Yeah.
But I think we need, and some of those just sort of chatting with women about you, because you share issues, and I think sometimes they're the most cathartic things. Yes, you think it's just you, but it isn't. But I think we kind of now need to sort of move on. And actually, I think most of the education now around this is actually for the men. Not for the women.
Yes.
You know, I think women are actually, you know,
they're all right. We don't need fixing.
Exactly. Yeah. So actually, you know, maybe we shift the focus, and instead of making them still the focus is around sort of, successful women, for instance.
Yes.
But it has to involve, the men have to be in on that conversation. And so they should be at the dinners. And actually, I think...
Well, they often are. And then they say...
there were lots of men.
Oh, there were lots of men. Yeah. Oh, yes. But it's interesting. They often are. And I think your point is really also about allyship, and people say to me, why are the men here? I'm like, we need them. We need them even more, because they're generally, maybe that, because they're not the ones talking about it. They're not always the ones understanding the barriers. So if it's just women in a room talking about that to themselves, how do they know, and how do you educate them? Precisely. So I think that's probably, that just needs to be done, I think, a little bit more. Yes.
I think our sort of gender diversity board member in the past has always been a woman, but actually we've now made a conscious decision that that's a male partner.
Yes.
And I think that's made a big difference as well, because as I say, you can sort of train women, you can give them all these skills, but actually, the men need to understand, i.e. that 5 o'clock appointment that you just put in someone's diary who has got young children.
Yes.
You think about that before you put it in, not always upskilling the woman to be brave enough to say, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
We need to get to the point where they're already thinking that's not a good idea to put that in my diary.
Yes. Yeah, no, fantastic point. But this podcast is about 150,000 listeners now. And I know a lot of them are men, because they email me all the time. So I hope that those who are listening do not do that. Don't put those meetings in. You're very wise, and a lot of the points you've made are so interesting. But I wonder, if you've got any advice for sort of the 21-year-old Shelley who maybe is starting out. Really, it's a question about any advice to your younger self. For me, I often think, I was such a swot. I should have had more fun. And I was so hard.
I'm not going to say that, because that wouldn't be true.
See, role reversal. Yeah, that's your advice to me, right?
My advice probably would be, work a bit harder throughout the year and not leave it all till the end, just before the exams. But, no, I think, because I have a 13-year-old daughter, so my advice to her would be just go for it. Just the world is absolutely your oyster. Life is very short, very unpredictable. Just take every opportunity that you possibly can, and also be authentic to yourself.
Absolutely.
I think that's really key. Don't feel like you need to sort of fit in or conform to what people would expect, or because actually the uniqueness of people is actually your USP.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
So I think that would be, and I think I would say as well, don't be sort of afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah. Or failing.
Exactly. Yeah. Or trying something that, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Try something else until you find, what does work for you. And ultimately, I think before you have children, you probably think all these things. Yeah. But by the time you have them, all I actually want for her is just to be happy. And so it finds something that makes you happy.
Yes.
I think that's probably would be my advice.
That's how we started. Your love of the law. Thank you so much, Shelley. And actually, that's helped me, because you said, don't try and fit in. So I can't be a 7-foot blonde woman ever. I'll stick to being I think I'm 5 foot now, short black woman.
That would be my advice to my younger self, because I've done all of those things.
Yes.
But I think that's what you get with age, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Is that actually this is who you are, and as long as you're being nice to people, then the rest of it I think
follow.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow, Shelley. Gosh, I feel like I need another 2 hours with you, even though you're now running off. Thank you so much for talking law with me in this interview. And I'm glad I pinned you down at last. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
A big thank you to Shelley McGivern for talking law with me, Sally Penni MBE. And thanks again to Addleshaw Goddard, LLP, for supporting this episode. Do visit Addleshawgoddard.com to find out more about the work that they do across the world. If you'd like to support Talking Law, then please get in touch via Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I'd love you to follow me on Twitter at Sally Penni MBE. Do make sure you catch up with previous episodes of Talking Law, where you can hear my interviews with guests such as multi-medal winning Paralympian Baroness Tanni Gray Thompson and Managing Partner Alison Lobb. Before I go, a reminder to get your tickets to the Women in the Law annual dinner and conference, and you can also watch my TED Talk at TED.com. Thanks to our production team, Sam Walker and Michael Blades at What Goes On Media. I'm Dr. Sally Penni MBE. Bye for now.